What's up, everybody? It's Doc. Sitting out here taking a break before I go to the next session. So, just sitting here pondering this as I'm driving. So, the question is, and I've heard this several times, is talking to several people. Some people just legitimately asking the question, and others are, your usual from the Black conscious community. And the question is that if God is so smart and intelligent, if He's so loving and kind, why not just destroy the devil? Why not just get rid of him and go from there? So with that, the presupposition that has to appear is that God is not good. God is not the most intelligent. Really, God doesn't exist. So most of the time when your scoffers and everybody else are asking this question, it's simply they're saying they're trying to get you to think. But if you don't know the character of God, if you don't know who He is, His purpose and everything else, and our purpose that was found in Him, then it's not going to make sense to you. The only thing you can do is scoff. So let's do this quickly. Number one, you got to deal with the character of God. God is not just the kid that's on a anthill looking for ants to kill with a magnifying glass. God is the God of not only justice, but definitely we know Him as the God of love. We know Him the God of mercy. We know Him the most intelligent being, period. We know Him as creative, and He's creator, He's master, He's all these things. So the thing that we have to look at is that if this is the case, then if God has to eliminate of Satan because of his rebellion, then guess what? He's got to do the same thing for us. And He's got to be the same across the board. And that's not just those who are sinners. There will be Christians as well. And the reason why I say that is it will be Christians because if that's going to be the approach of God to immediately eliminate, then many of us wouldn't even made it to being Christ-like because we would have been dead from the jump. But that's not God. God in His infinite wisdom realizes that there's another approach He has to do to this. Call it good parenting, if you will. Sometimes just spanking the child doesn't work. So a lot of times we got parents now, they just look at the child and the child realize, all right, slow down, slow my roll. But again, you have to know the character of God. So not only is He applying justice, He's also applying mercy. And so even with Satan himself, and to give an example of this, and I didn't think about this until I was thinking about this story of, well, not the story, but the account of them doing the Passover meal with Christ. And at that time, Satan himself had entered Judas and was sitting there at the table with Jesus. And so when He described the person that actually had betrayed Him, here's Satan sitting at the table, and He turns around and tells Satan, okay, go. Okay, leave. If God was going to be that person that eliminates people like that, He could have instantly just dropped them like that. But we got to look at God's overall plan. Got to look at His purpose. So for people to turn around and say, well, why doesn't God just turn around and just kill Satan and just get it over with? Again, you've got to look at the overall plan that God has. And plus, out of His character, if He's going to do that, He's got to do that with everybody. So nobody's safe. Nobody's safe at all. Let alone on top of that, also the other thing that you got to look at too is if that's going to be the case with God, then we've got to look at our own definition of what we think is justice and what we think is goodness. And if you're someone who says that they know the Bible, or if you're a Christian and has read the scripture or whatnot, you'll know that it says that our righteousness is like filthy rags. The very thing that we think is justice, a lot of times, God has said, I'm so much beyond that. So the last thing I want to leave is that too many people look at Satan, and this is where you get people watching too many horror movies and have heard too many myths and stories about who Satan is. First of all, Satan is not even his name. It's the Satan. That means the adversary. So the Satan basically is a defeated foe, was crushed in the beginning. It's like going to watch a football team play a team that's undefeated and someone who's never won a game in 3 years. You go in with the expectation that, okay, this person's probably not going to do so hot. And so subjectivity, like I often hear people talk about, well, God has killed 2 million something people, and then Satan has killed only 9 or 6 or whatever. There's a meme. There's multiple memes that go out there that try to make God to be evil, and even the scripture says that there'll be a time where people will look at things that are good as evil and evil as good, and we see that happening right now. So the reality of it is that the 3 times that Satan has even showed up, it's always been to pull away, it's always been to deceive, and eventually destroy. That's always been the case. Adam and Eve, where you see he shows up in the garden, story of Job, when you see him going before God is saying that, God is the one that's really testing him, but he uses the Satan, the adversary, to go up against him. But you got to remember, again, Satan is a defeated foe. And then there's when the Satan went up against Jesus himself. So, and I guess you could count a fourth time when Satan actually enters Judas and he's sitting in the presence, deceptively, he's sitting there. So this is what I would tell everybody. The answer to your question is, if that's going to be the case, in God's infinite wisdom, he realizes that applying his justice and his mercy is going to be just as important, because if he's going to do it to the adversary, he's going to do it to the Satan, he's got to do it to every single person. And in the process of that, in his wisdom, because he's the most intelligent being of all, he realizes that I can still apply justice and at the same time apply mercy and still offer it to all beings. It is up to the being whether they accept it or not. So if Satan is not going to be willing to accept it, and you have people that are running around here right now because of their logic and their common sense and everything else and their disbelief, then they will have no excuse in the end, because that's being offered. Even on this video, I offer to you, again, the gospel, understanding that our intelligence, our common sense and everything else is so minuscule when it comes to God, so minuscule. And if God is even going to apply justice and mercy to the adversary, who is the one who's the ultimate enemy, then if he's not going to give him an excuse, then guess what? You're not going to have one either, because guess what? It's by your free will that you make the decision on whether or not you accept God, believe God, trust him, obey him, and so forth. It's by your free will. It's by your free will. I'm Doc. I'm out.